later on. It's a messy picture across the UK at the moment. We've got low pressure to the northwest, a weather front bringing an area of cloud and some showers into the north and the west. But ahead of it, remarkably hot across East Anglia as well as the southeast of England, temperatures into the low 30s, sparking some thunderstorms across northeast England initially, and then we're watching this development over northern France as it pushes north into southeast England during the early hours. And that could bring a month or even 2 months worth of rain in under 3 hours for parts of London and the southeast, hence the amber thunderstorm warning, which is valid from 4 a.m. until 11 a.m. And it's this area of thundery rain moving north, intense rainfall rates falling onto dry ground. Further west, a muggy start to the day, but some sunny spells, although quite a few showers into the west, a fresher feel for northwestern parts of the UK. But we keep the high temperatures in the east and the southeast, although moderated, of course, by these outbreaks of rain that are increasingly spreading north across central and eastern parts of the UK. So many places will start off Saturday with heavy bouts of wet weather and some hail, lightning around as well. But the main focus for the heavy rain moves north as Saturday continues into southern and eastern Scotland by the end of the day. Where it's raining, of course, it's not going to feel particularly hot, but elsewhere we keep the humid feel. Where the sun does come through across central parts, it is going to feel very warm once again. Then heading into Saturday night, further spells of rain into the northeast, another batch of wet weather and potential thunderstorms moves into the southwest along with brisk winds. It stays very showery into the start of next week.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A96 is closed at Newton of Petty due to an incident. Motorists should find alternatives. In Worcester, a broken down vehicle on the M5 southbound between junctions 5 and 6 is causing 40-minute delays. The M4 eastbound in Wiltshire between junctions 18 and 17 has one lane closed due to a vehicle fire, with normal conditions expected by 7. And on the trains, there's disruption between Nuneaton and Birmingham New Street on cross-country services and on the Elizabeth line between Reading and London Paddington. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, welcome. It is 6 o'clock. Welcome to Dewbs & Co with me, Nana Aquare. Coming up on the show tonight, lawyers are using human rights laws to try to force the government to bring tens of thousands of Afghans to the UK as Grant Shapps insists they saved lives with a super injunction over the Afghan data leak. Our friend Diane Abbott has become the 5th Labour MP to be suspended this week. Is Sir Keir Starmer looking like a weak leader? Would you have done the same? After all, that's 5 MPs. Last year, it was 7 this month. Do you think that perhaps he might be running out of road? And the Environment Agency reported a 60% increase in serious water pollution incidents in England. Should we scrap Ofwat and nationalise water? And a poll has revealed that most Britons would support fines for foul language based on Thanet Council proposals for £100 fines. Do you think swearing fines are justified? So good evening. My panel tonight, political consultant Alex Dean, and also journalist and former press secretary to Paddy Ashdown, Joe Phillips. A great show coming up, but first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you very much and good evening. The top stories. More than 23,000 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel this year as hundreds more made the crossing this morning. People smuggling gangs have taken advantage of thick fog in the English Channel today to launch multiple small boats towards UK waters. GB News can also reveal more than 320 migrants made the crossing yesterday. The number who have crossed so far this year is more than 55% up on the same period last year. 2 people were arrested following anti-immigration protests overnight at a hotel in Epping. Essex police said a police officer sustained minor injuries after protesters clashed with police. Fireworks were let off and eggs were thrown outside the hotel. Police vehicles were also damaged. It's the latest demonstration to happen outside the Bell Hotel after a 38-year-old man was accused of sexual assault. The man denied trying to kiss a 14-year-old girl when he appeared in court yesterday. In other news, the child who died in a school coach crash in Minehead yesterday was a 10-year-old boy, police say. 6 children, 3 adults remain in hospital. 21 were taken to hospital in total following the collision between Wedden Cross and Timbercombe yesterday afternoon. Several had serious injuries, including 2 children. There were 60 to 70 people on board at the time of the accident. Tributes have been paid to the victims of the heartbreaking and devastating crash. One message said, "Our community is holding you all tight and surrounding you with love." Sir Keir Starmer said there are no adequate words to acknowledge the death of a child. No further action will be taken over Kneecap's performance at Glastonbury. Officers said they'd taken advice from the Crown Prosecution Service and decided there's not enough evidence to provide a realistic prospect of conviction for any offence. The Avon and Somerset Force started investigating the Irish group's show at the festival last month, as well as comments by punk rap duo Bob Vylan. It said they were looking at a possible public order incident and a senior detective had been appointed to lead the case. However, the force said it was still investigating Bob Vylan's performance after the duo led on-stage chants of death to the IDF. Diane Abbott says the Labour leadership wants me out and that her comments in a BBC interview released this week were factually correct after she was suspended from the Labour Party for a second time. Her suspension comes after she doubled down on comments about racism, for which she previously apologised. She's the 5th Labour MP to be suspended by the Prime Minister this week. Miss Abbott was suspended by Labour in 2023 after writing a letter to The Observer comparing racism experienced by people of colour with that seen by other groups. She apologised and was readmitted to the party before the 2024 general election. Rachel Maskell, Brian Leishman, Chris Hinchcliffe and Neil Duncan-Jordan all lost the whip as well this week as they now sit as independents in the House of Commons. Former Defence Secretary Grant Shapps says he'd make the same call again in a heartbeat when it comes to the Afghan data leak, saying Afghans who helped Britain risked execution. The personal details of spies and special forces were included in a data breach that led to thousands of Afghans being secretly relocated to the UK. Information about more than 100 Britons was also contained in the breach. Shapps said the injunction blocking reporting of the breach at the time was quite rightly applied for by his predecessor, and he believed at the time it should stay in place. The super injunction preventing the reporting of even the existence of the injunction was lifted earlier this week. And at least 3 people have been killed after a horrific incident at a Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department training facility, the U.S. Attorney General has said. There was an explosion at the Biscayne Center Academy training in East LA, according to reports. The incident was reported at around 7:30 a.m. local time. That's 3:30 p.m. this time. Aerial footage from a local TV channel suggests the explosion happened in a car park filled with sheriff patrol cars and box trucks. A spokesperson for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department says the cause of the incident is under investigation. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in an hour. Now it's over to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening and welcome to Dewbs and Co with me, Nana Akua. And joining me until 7, my panel, political consultant Alex Dean, and also journalist and former press secretary to Paddy Ashdown, Joe Phillips. And as ever, love to hear your thoughts. Get them to me now, gbnews.com/your say. All right, let's kick things off. It's just coming up to 7 minutes after 6 o'clock. The former Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, has spoken for the first time about an unprecedented legal gagging order that was put in place after personal information was released in error. He insists that they saved lives with a super injunction over the Afghan data leak. And this comes as lawyers are reportedly aiming to use the ECHR, yes, you guessed it, to force the government to bring tens of thousands of Afghans to the UK after their names were leaked and the personal details of spies and special forces were included in the leak, as well as information about more than 100 Britons. So is Grant Shapps justified, or have current decisions inadvertently encouraged further migration? Well, let's get the thoughts of my panel, political consultant Alex Dean, also journalist and former press secretary to Paddy Ashdown, Joe Phillips. Alex Dean, I will start with you. What are your thoughts on this?
I don't think the explanation from the last government washes for this at all. There are 2 issues. The migration one you've mentioned applies as much to this government, and we probably should have left the ECHR by now, so that sits with both governments. But the more important issue here is the injunction. If you have troops in the field, if you have planes in the air, and over a course of a matter of hours, a media outlet says to you, I know about it, and you injunct them to stop it, that is saving lives in the course of British military personnel being deployed, and that is entirely justifiable. This, month after month after month, and moreover, after the leak had happened, right? This doesn't stop the material getting to our enemies. They'd already got the material. This is arse covering, and it's using the courts to do it. And both governments have done it. It's a complete abuse of the legal system as far as I'm concerned. The injunction should never have been granted in the first place.
Do you not think Grant Shapps said that he would do it again in a heartbeat? And if you were on this list that was supposedly of people who were in danger from the Taliban,
yes,
you may well be in danger.
That's my point. They lost the data in 2022. They applied for the injunction in 2023, by which time they knew full well that enemies of our country had got hold of it. The Taliban was boasting about having the list. Enemies of Britain all around the world had got, far more likely to have got access to it by that point than read about it in the Times. It wasn't to try and stop channels like this reporting on. You weren't going to run the names of the individuals anyway. Right?
No, but if people did report it, it would draw attention to that, and then people will go looking, as often happens.
I'm afraid the cat was well and truly out of the bag by then, not least because there were people in Afghanistan being pursued because they were on the list, and they've got people who got hold of the list because it had been leaked. So it just doesn't wash. It's not about saving lives. It was about a cover-up.
Well, don't you think that, anyway, the Taliban would know who was assisting the British because they'd be there and they'd probably see them anyway? Joe Phillips.
Well, I agree with Alex. The whole thing is absolutely scandalous. It's an attack on democracy. It's an attack on the judiciary. Grant Shapps is rewriting history. He applied to have this extended when the election was called last year. And as Alex rightly says, the information has been out there for an awfully long time. This is a cover-up of the most extreme way that we've ever seen, I think, in this country. And I think it's also covering up the fact that there was a secret scheme to bring Afghans into Britain that the government didn't want people to know about because they were quite happy to ramp up the anti-immigration thing, but meanwhile we're bringing Afghan people in. There are many, many ways that you can stop information getting out. In the old days, they used to call them D notices, which were used in times of warfare. Those have now gone, but we've never had a super injunction like this. And to not allow the members of the Intelligence and Security Committee, who are extremely used to seeing stuff, they're not going to run down the dog and duck and say, guess what I've just seen. These are intelligence and security experts who are trusted. They were not allowed to see this. Some ministers were not allowed to see it. It's absolutely disgraceful.
And the policy, getting the injunction meant that ministers were gagged outside of the House, couldn't talk about it. And, of course, outside of the shadow defence secretary, the opposition weren't able to hold the government of the day to account. But lest you think I'm just bashing my party, the Tory party, the current government has rolled on with this until the present day and are just as much culpable for it, in my view, as the last government. Indeed, one of the things they could have done, perhaps should have done, is say immediately after the election, my goodness, look at this. Isn't this disgraceful? A government policy to bring thousands of people to this country in secret, conceived and executed without the knowledge of the British people and not even telling their elected representatives so they could be held to account.
Yeah, but you see, OK, so I'm gonna put it out there. Frankly, I'm just not interested in this at all because I think that there's loads of these things going on that we don't know about. I can't see the benefit of the Labour Party or Labour government highlighting it now. All it's done is created a wonderful litany of lawyers who are ready to now jump on it and say, oh, well, these people on the list...
Well,
but these people on the list, and now look at this. I think it's a distraction tactic because this is already out there. He didn't really need to talk about it when, in the meantime, people are coming into this country via small boat. This is what I see. That's what I think.
If you don't care about it, then that's very sad.
Well, I don't care, no.
Because, you know, this is about government keeping things from us, from our elected representatives.
But why are you surprised at that, then? They're always doing it. There's loads of things they do it on.
Well, not at this level, they're not. They're absolutely not at this level. Of course, there are things that are, you know, obfuscated and hidden in sort of documents and things like that. And, you know, that's why it was journalists who fought to get this lifted. This is really important because you cannot have, as Alex rightly says, you know, a secret plan to bring people into the country.
To smuggle them.
You're basically doing the smuggling job.
At the same time, we're saying people smuggling is wrong.
Well, but the reason why they were doing it, and let's go with their reasoning, that they were protecting people who'd been put on a list and their details exposed, even though they talked about it a year later. But that's what they're saying. So that would be.
They would be proud of that.
Well, what's the benefit now of us all talking about it? And now we've got a whole legal. We've got now a litany of lawyers ready to start trying to get even more money off the British taxpayer.
There are multiple benefits from talking about it now.
The first
is that when the government applied for an injunction, it just wanted an injunction. It didn't ask for a super injunction, which is when you say, not only will I give you an injunction, no one else can talk about the fact that there's been one issue. The court did that in and of itself. The second reason it's worth talking about is that this is a colossal mistake from the MOD. And as far as one can tell so far, in a department where you'd rather like to think they get things right with the ability to carry out lethal force against the King's enemies, that people will be held to account. Of course, we don't know whether anyone's been held to account because this was carried out in secret. The third thing that's happened is that both of the main political parties went to the electorate at the last general election saying that they were against more migration to this country. And they were certainly, and they dressed it up in different ways and talked about it in different language, they were against bringing people here who are from a different culture and might find it difficult to integrate into British life if coming in great numbers. You can justify, for the reasons you've given, people who helped us coming from Afghanistan, but you have to do it publicly. You can't do it and then retrospectively say, years on, well, the reason I didn't tell you about this, or even, to be fair, the reason we misled you about this is as follows, is the kind of excuses they gave. The reason that British personnel were named in this is that in the course of trying to make their application to come to this country, Afghans would cite people that had helped them and they had helped. Well, it shouldn't be, as in some of those were diplomats, some of them were in our intelligence services, some of them were in our special forces. It shouldn't be beyond the wit of man to maintain some basic database integrity and being able to separate out what the names from the information that they have supplied and so forth. And it certainly shouldn't be beyond the MOD to defend its own data.
I do agree that that was an absolutely monumental cock-up, and one person allowing that to be leaked is just absolutely ridiculous. So it does expose how useless...
But if you don't know about it,
how
then you can't
useless
hold
the
someone to
MOD,
account.
how useless the MOD is. I don't even think they are holding the soldier who leaked it to account anyway, because no one really wants to talk about that. All they want to talk about is the fact that we are now looking at this and saying they shouldn't have kept it from us. Why would you? What benefit do you think it would have been for them to then say, OK, this has happened, it's been a big leak, and there are 18,700 names on a list, and these people potentially are at risk from the Taliban?
So, if you are then going to say, we are going to bring those people into Britain because they have helped us, they have supported our troops in Afghanistan, and that's a whole different kettle of fish as whether we should have been there in the first place.
Then have the debate.
But, you know, have the debate, have the conversation. But you can't, on the one hand, say, we're going to be tough on immigration and let it be fuelled into this vile hatred. Imagine you're an Afghan, and imagine you're now living in, I don't know, Bournemouth, let's say, and somebody says, oh, hello, Alex, you know, where do you come from? Well, originally from Afghanistan. Oh, how did you get here? You're not going to say, well, guess what, I was an interpreter for British forces. If you're frightened, you're going to say, oh, I was an engineer or something. So people are going to think, oh, well, there's another one that's got over here.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
You've asked a question, and it's really important that we, the public, we can choose to ignore it or say, oh, it doesn't matter. But without it being out there, neither we nor our elected representatives, and that is the most important thing, can hold it to account.
My point is, my question is, though, my question is this. We would have protected these people because they helped the British forces, supposedly, even though they say that 1 in 15 or only 1 in 15 on the list were actually helping. But, you know, hey, that's another thing. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, what is the benefit of us exposing this to us when actually, as a result, whether you think it's right or wrong, as a result, we now have between 80 to 100,000 people potentially now trying to claim that they should be, they've been endangered, and now we've got a litany of lawyers ready to claim billions from the taxpayer.
Yeah. The answer is, first of all, the point about... You say you don't care, but the point about living in a democracy is important. Transparency in government is important.
Yeah, but what's the benefit, I'm asking you? What's the benefit of us doing this now, when ultimately all that it's ended up doing is create a huge vortex now of people who are ready to try and get money out of the system?
I don't accept the correlation between what you've said, what we're talking about, and the consequences you're identifying. Because if you were right, then the government should just carry on bringing people to this country in secret forever.
No, I'm not saying that.
Well, that's the logic. Because they didn't just cover up the leak; they covered up the scheme to bring people here.
That's what they were covering up.
Yeah.
So,
well, I get that. But my point is this: now that we know about this scheme, and I would have just, you know, I would have liked the governments to deal with it quietly. And OK, so we know about this cover up for the scheme and everything. But the scheme was ending, and the Labour government was saying that half the people on there were not necessarily coming to this country, so therefore they don't need to be on the list.
I think I can answer your question then, but it may be in terms you don't like. On the one hand, you are so deeply cynical about democracy, you have a corrosive lack of faith in government that that you're not surprised at all that these things happen.
No,
on the other hand, you have confidence in them doing this in the dark without us knowing about it.
No, I didn't say that.
As far as you were concerned, they'd rather just do it quietly.
No, I'm saying...
struggling to manage these two things together.
Well, that's OK, because my point is that right now, exposing it and bringing it to the forefront has only now resulted in loads of litigation and loads of cases.
Do you know what?
I would have liked the government to be able to manage it. Yeah, but it's going to cost us...
There are an awful lot of things that have been covered up over the years that have been revealed and unmasked, mainly by journalists, but sometimes through Parliament. Let's think, you know, thalidomide. Let's think blood scandal. Let's
Hillsborough,
think
Post Office.
Yeah, no, listen. I'm
let's
not.
think.
But I'm
the
talking
COVID inquiry.
I'm talking about this specific thing. This specific thing.
Grenfell.
Yeah, but this specific thing was done, I think, initially, and I think that it was meant to be done to protect people, and it's kind of gone wrong because obviously they were hiding a scheme.
Gone wrong is right.
That was trying to protect people, and I don't know. My dilemma in my mind is ultimately that on one point you don't want to expose it and bring it back to the forefront because then some of those people on that list are now re-exposed, and now you are creating another scenario where perhaps the Taliban might go, oh, hold on, what about that person on the list? So that is my dilemma with it, and in the end what happens is the British taxpayer is paying a fortune for it. So
we were paying a fortune for it anyway.
But we're going to be paying even more now if that's part of the argument. But Alex Dean and also Joe Phillips, they'll be carrying on with this discussion. But coming up, Diane Abbott, one of my favourites. She's become the 5th Labour MP to be suspended by Sir Keir Starmer this week. Is Sir Keir Starmer a weak leader?
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Tell me now, are you concerned about these driverless cars, Tim, that are going to be put into operation in London by as early as next year?
Well, Uber is preparing to test fully self-driving taxis on London's roads for the first time. By 2026, I have an observation there that if you look at Elon Musk over the last 5 or 6 years, kept promising that there were going to be driverless cars. The norm in America, and it hasn't happened yet. So I'd be very surprised if by 2026 that's actually on the streets of London. I'm more intrigued, though, if they are driverless robotic cars, if they're still going to give you a review. You know, you get your 5 stars at the end if you were a good passenger. Who's going to review how good you are once you're in these cars?
Would you trust it? Would you take one?
I think
I would, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Really?
Would you, Claire?
I know, I'm a bit reticent.
I'm a bit nervous about it.
Yeah, accepting a driverless car.
I think what they do eventually is they'll take any joy out of driving that there is. You get you won't get in, you feel the smell, get the gear stick. You know, I mean, a car is a great joyous thing
I don't take any joy from
to drive.
Yeah.
I take no joy. It's awful.
What?
Such a chore.
Is that because
driving?
Are you a good driver?
No, I'm a terrible
that's
driver.
why.
So maybe this could be a good thing for me.
I think it's
I mean,
the
you see the other
drivers
side of this.
that take the joy out of it sometimes.
Oh, I just think, can you imagine a glitch in the Matrix with a driverless car?
Oh,
what
I
on
know.
earth
You'd have to
could
hop in
happen?
the
Well,
front
you and I
seat.
live in Chiswick,
Yeah.
and the Chiswick High Road, like lots of high roads in many towns and villages.
Well, it's the bus
across...
lanes that's a problem with
But they've
Chiswick High
closed
Road.
all those down now, and if an ambulance goes down, there is carnage trying to get through to whoever they're needing to treat.
Or in King
So
Street,
it's
if a bus
dangerous.
tries to overtake a bus or anything else, you can't do it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening and welcome. This is Dewbs and Co with me, Nana Akua, keeping me company until 7. Political consultant Alex Dean, as a journalist and former press secretary to Paddy Ashdown, Joe Phillips. Well, lots of you have been getting in touch with your views, and not surprisingly, a lot of you don't agree with me at all. Some of you saying that you disappoint me, Nana. Look, that's just my view, and we won't always continuously share exactly the same view, and that is life. But let's see what are people saying. Nana, I can't believe you think this is OK. You've disappeared me. I think you mean disappointed me, but I'll take that. But look, that's just my view. I hear you, but for me, where does the British people fit in all this, especially the veterans? Very true. I'm with you on that. Cliff said this is all BS. When the Americans exited Afghanistan, they left behind huge databases, facial recognition systems and data, etc., etc. The Taliban would have had access to these and knew who helped the previous regime. Exactly my point. That's what I thought. Also, sophisticated weapons are now being used in Syria. Nana, you are not listening to your panel. They are talking in sense. That is from Linda. Linda, yes, they're talking their sense. I'm speaking mine, I guess. I agree. People might not agree with me. Debbie says, Nana, you disappoint me. We need to know what they are doing so it never happens again. What if they kept doing this because no one was bothered? And then Leslie says, Nana, shut up. You're babbling continuously and floundering. When in a hole, stop digging. Well, thank you very much for that. Look, these are my views. That's what I think. For me personally, I'd like to be focusing more on what's happening across our channel, and I'd like to hear more about that. I'd like to hear the government dealing with that one. But let's move on to Diane Abbott. She's become the 5th Labour MP to be suspended by Sir Keir Starmer this week. A Labour Party spokesperson said Abbott has been suspended pending an investigation, and it's because in an interview with the BBC, she doubled down on her claim that Jews experience racism differently to black people. Have a listen.
You appear to suggest, in the view of some of your critics anyway, that the kind of anti-Semitism that the Jewish community suffered or travellers suffered or Irish people suffered was somehow different from the racism that you as a young black person had suffered. You were suspended and there was a great hoo-ha. Do you look back on that with regret?
No, not at all. Clearly, there must be a difference between racism, which is about colour, and other types of racism.
Yes, well, Rachel Maskell, Neil Duncan, Jordan, Brian Leishman, Chris Hinchcliffe were suspended this week for repeated breaches of party discipline, notably around the Welfare Reform Rebellion. Last year, Starmer suspended 7 Labour MPs who broke the party whip to vote to remove the 2-child benefit cap. Is Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer a weak leader? I'd like to hear what you think. Let's start with you, Jay. What do you think? Is he weak?
Well, not really. I think lots of people think he's being too tough. Diane Abbott is not linked to the 4 who have been suspended. I think it's important to make that clear. It is quite clear that obviously her apology was not sincere because she has, as we heard in that clip, and I actually heard the interview in full, when asked whether she regretted what she said, she said, no, I'd say it again, and then went on to say it again. If you remember when that article first appeared in the Observer, she then blamed it on not checking it properly or somebody else sending it before she'd read it. Yeah. She went all around the houses saying, poor me, victim, victim, victim. It's a shame because she has done sterling public service. She has been in Parliament for decades. She was the first black woman MP. She's been re-elected for Hackney, on several occasions, and she is the mother of the house as the longest-serving MP. So nobody should take away what she has achieved. But this is just silly, and I don't think that Keir Starmer had any other option but to suspend her. As for the others, they've been suspended, and there will be an investigation into Diane Abbott, as the Labour Party have said. As for the others, they were told very clearly, and it was made clear, if you vote against the government, then you're going to lose the whip. I think there's a whole different argument, actually, that the reform bill was a complete dog's breakfast. And actually, if Number 10 had been listening to the concerns of MPs earlier on, they might have come up with something that was actually a little bit more sensible and had got some hard and fast measures in, like, for instance, no more online or phone consultations and applications for PIP. You've got to turn up in person and changing things. But they couched it in terms of saving money, just like they did with the winter fuel. So, the narrative that they chose to use was about taking money from the poorest and most vulnerable people. And that's, I think, why the MPs were crossed. But I don't think you've got any option other than to suspend people. You go into government, you know what the deal is.
But you should be able to have people disagree with you without having to suddenly immediately remove the whip. He's got such a massive majority. It's just, even though that doesn't seem like a lot, but it's all disappearing as he speaks. But as for Diane Abbott, no one can take away the fact that she was the first black female MP in the House of Commons. I mean, she's taking all of it away from herself. She was the first one to be suspended for racism, as it was.
Yeah, look, she can't help herself, really, can she? She gave that fulsome apology. I think she apologised for any anguish that she had caused by her office putting it in the passive, submitting a draft of the article in error. She fully apologised. Well, clearly she didn't mean that. It's very sad in some ways. I watched her contribution to the debate on so-called assisted dying, or doctors playing an active role in killing you, as some others might see it. And I thought she spoke with great, profound thoughtfulness in the course of that, and struggling to speak as she did. And I admired and respected her for that. And then fast forward a month, and here she is pouring out the same, basically, just vile anti-Semitism that she had repudiated from her own mouth only recently before. So that's Diane Abbott. On the other 4, I'm afraid Keir Starmer is going to find these people are basically unbiddable. 3 of them sit for seats that the Labour Party, under anything short of extraordinary circumstances, doesn't win anyway. And the last, Maskell, just is going to put 2 fingers up. These are not people who aspire to ministerial office who can be bought off. The trouble for him is that he's doing it because his loyalists have said, what do I get? I've done everything you asked. I've voted for things I don't really like. I've voted for things even I don't believe in. I've kept my mouth shut. And there are those people over there shouting the odds. Why do they get away with it? So that's why he had to suspend the 4. The trouble for them is, you think he may have gone too far. For many of those lawyers, he didn't go far enough, because it has the sense that he's picked on the people, like a bully in the playground. He's picked on the people he can bully. Meg Hillier led the last rebellion.
Yes.
She gets away scot-free. Richard Bergen, he thinks, might defect, so he doesn't suspend him, and so forth. He picks on the people he thinks he can... Clive Lewis is another. Big enough and ugly enough, probably fight back, leave him alone.
I think the sad thing is, as we come to the fag end of this parliamentary session, it's been overall very disappointing. But we know that the Labour has got a massive majority, but it is wafer thin. And there's an awful lot of MPs who will be thinking, well, I'm going to be a one-term politician. Yeah. So actually they've got nothing left to lose. They can say they're speaking up for their constituents, or they can do it from the heart, which I believe Rachel Maskell actually does. But, I think that everything is so fractious. And I think Number 10 have made some fundamentally appalling messes of their own making. They can't blame Sue Gray anymore. They're trying to blame Morgan McSweeney. Apparently they're unhappy with the new head of the civil service that Keir Starmer chose to put in place. And you sort of think, come on, get a grip. You've got the summer recess coming up. The government needs to get a grip. Keir Starmer needs to get a grip on his party. This may be the wrong way of showing it, but, you've got to do something to try and bring people back into the... But you've got to say, what are we here for?
Well, Diane Abbott told Sky News, it's obvious this Labour leadership wants me out. My comments in the interview with James Naughty were factually correct, as any fair-minded person would accept. I don't think they were. I think what she said there was maybe from her own perspective, but from other people's perspective, it might be quite different. Lots of you still getting in touch, lots more messages on the Afghan fallout with the Grant chaps. Jim says, Nana, I say we owed those people protection during our occupation. Once we leave, then they are not our responsibility. I would say some might have some sympathy, but do we want them here? Hell no. Disgusting cover-up from the Tories. Martin says, I am more interested in finding out what super injunctions Keir Starmer may or may not have. I think he's got some on his pension, actually, as it goes. Grumpy Grandad says... Hang on, it's not a super injunction, it's an Act of Parliament. Oh, yeah, you're right, it's an Act of Parliament. No, that's very true, very true. Grumpy Grandad says, nobody minds helping Afghans that helped out armed forces, but the vast majority of these people haven't. Brian said, what is happening to this country? Infected blood, post office, Afghanistan scandal after scandal. And John says, Nana, tell your guest to let the Afghans move into their house and tell the ECHR where to go. And Keith says, if a government can get away with the super injunction this time, what's to stop the government bringing in super injunctions anytime they want to hide something? And Maria says, it's a real shame the government do not look after the veterans that served in Northern Ireland, as well as the Afghans and all the illegal immigrants. Right, we'll keep them coming. gbnews.com/your say. Coming up, has the drive towards net zero risk sidelined other critical environmental priorities? Should we scrap Ofwat and renationalise water? We'll debate that next.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Lots of blue skies and strong hot sunshine around the Mediterranean at the moment. There's going to be a bit of a breeze blowing, however, this weekend, especially for Crete and Cyprus. Maybe 1 or 2 showers inland across Turkey, but again, most of the coast's dry and sunny. Same goes for Italy and much of southern Spain, along with the Balearics and the Canaries. Also set fair. Temperatures in Tenerife close to 30 Celsius. We'll have highs here of 29 for the next few days and similar temperatures in Barcelona.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A lively night out there in places with a thunderstorm warning in force for parts of southeast England because of the sheer amount of rain that could fall in just under 3 hours. We've got low pressure to the northwest. That's causing rising air. That, combined with the heat and humidity that has been building over the last few days, means that an area of thundery rain may well be imported from northern France through the Channel and arrive into London and the southeast during the early hours. And the intense rainfall rates, although not everyone will experience them, Of course, there is the risk of flash flooding from this system. Elsewhere across the UK, a muggy night to come. A lot of cloud cover, further showers here and there, but particularly across parts of England into East Wales. And it's this area where there is the risk of a month or even 2 months worth of rain falling in less than 3 hours. So although we need the rain, that amount of rain falling onto dry surfaces could cause some real issues by Saturday morning. Northern Ireland, cloudy skies, a few showers, scattered showers into the west of Scotland. Not as humid here as compared with the rest of the UK, but it's a cloudy picture across many parts of England, southern and eastern Scotland, parts of Wales as well, with these outbreaks of thundery rain moving north. Not everyone will experience thunder, lightning, hail, although there will be some aspects of that. Many places, though, will see a spell of heavy rain as it moves north into southern and eastern Scotland by the afternoon, followed by further showers or even thunderstorms towards the south. Where we do get some sunshine coming through, it's going to continue to feel very warm and humid. Less so on Sunday, and on Sunday we've got this low pressure system circulating close to the southwest of England, bringing further spells of heavy rain and showers into the southwest. There'll be further showers elsewhere as well. It slowly turns less humid and cooler as we start next week, but there'll be further heavy showers out there and further rumbles of thunder.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. A road incident on the A96 at Newton of Petty closes both ways. Motorists should find alternate routes. In Worcestershire, a vehicle breakdown on the M5 southbound between junction 5 and 6 closes 2 lanes, causing significant hold-ups. In Wiltshire, a vehicle fire on the M4 between junction 18 and 17 closes 1 of 3 lanes. Delays are on the A14 westbound in Suffolk between Bucklesham and Ipswich East. And on the trains, cross-country services face disruptions, while the Elizabeth line has delays between Reading and London Paddington. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, 36 minutes after 6 o'clock. This is Dewbs & Co with me, Nana Aquia, keeping me company until 7. Political consultant Alex Dean, and also journalist and former press secretary to Paddy Ashdown, Joe Phillips. Right, now, West Northamptonshire, the first Reform UK-run council, is scrapping its costly net zero targets. That means no electric vehicle fleets and no new EV chargers, all in a bid to focus on value for money for taxpayers. Reform UK have warned energy giants that if it comes to power, it will axe wind and solar subsidies, a move critics say threaten green jobs. This all comes as the Environment Agency reported a 60% increase in serious water pollution incidents in England last year, with Thames Water, Southern Water and Yorkshire Water responsible for over 80% of these cases. Ofwat, the water regulator, is reportedly set to be abolished on Monday under recommendations from the review led by former Bank of England Deputy Governor Sir John Cunliffe. Has the drive towards net zero sidelined our critical environmental priorities? And also, is it time to scrap Ofwat and renationalise water? Let's do the first half of that. I'll start with you, Alex.
Yeah, there are 2 completely separate debates, I think, but I'm completely in favour of councils pursuing what's in the best interest of their ratepayers. And if we do our best in this country, we've got the most reduction of our CO2 emissions of any G20 country. We can take pride in many of the measures that we have taken, which mean we've got a more diverse energy mix than many others. But you run the risk of going too far. When you do as this government's done and said no new exploration of the North Sea, stopping up one of the great sources of national wealth that could really help this country, I think you go too far, not least because were we to shut down UK PLC, the difference would be more than swallowed up by Chinese growth in a matter of months. So, the idea of councils making a difference in what they buy is for the birds for me. That's not to say you should be profligate, you should waste or burn something unnecessarily, but it's that if something doesn't make much difference and it's a lot more expensive, then you have no right to do that on the public purse. So that's my view on the council one.
All right. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, councils should be looking after the pennies for the people who are paying the council tax. But, you know, the idea that... I mean, why do people have to be so vile and so offensive? Why does Darren Grimes, we're done with expensive virtue signalling tripe and care about our residents? I should imagine the residents probably quite like to have clean air to breathe and clean pavements, and they probably don't like litter. So, you know, do you call that environmental tripe? I don't. This is a completely separate story to the one about water. Yeah. So let's park the net zero thing. The only thing I would say about net zero and green technology is it is creating an awful lot of jobs, particularly in coastal areas where other industries like fishing have died a death. And actually that's really quite important, and it is helping people to have jobs and do other things, and technology and engineering, etc. In terms of water, it's got nothing to do with net zero. This is about privatisation and the disgusting way, particularly with Thames Water, that they were allowed to sell off their debts, keep paying themselves bonuses, keep paying the shareholders, taken over by an Australian company, then sold on to somebody else, and never being forced to invest in infrastructure. I mean, we're building houses at the rate of knots, particularly on floodplains, which means there's nowhere for the water to go if indeed it ever rains. We're having more cars on the road, which means we've got more road, less grass, less land for water drainage, that sort of thing. And these companies have just been milking the public while pumping absolute rubbish into the seas and rivers, and the levels of pollution, 60%. Now, I live on the coast and I swim in the sea. Good for me, you might say. I won't go swimming...
Not really. I'd say don't go in the sea.
Well, I won't go tomorrow if it rains tonight as it's forecast, because I know they will be pumping sewage into the sea.
Now, and just to come back to that, I actually don't think that... I think net zero and the water are linked in the fact that these are environmental issues. And if you look at... Instead of focusing on cleaning our rivers, which is really important, they're talking about cleaning the air, but don't seem to be bothered about the rivers. And that is, I think, is a real problem. And I think that seems to be the hallmark of many of these net zero issues. Oh, yeah, as long as we get to zero carbon, that's fine. Oh, what, we're not going to have our own steel industry? Oh, that's fine, because we're going to offset our carbon to somewhere in China where they're going to create the steel, and then all the... who cares? What, let's put the wind farms in the sea. What, it damages the animals? Oh, forget that, no, because we'll have clean air, it's net zero.
I see your point, and there are a couple of direct connections. So dredging went out of fashion, for example, which can greatly, I understand, improve water quality in some areas. And then that debate's gone to and fro, but you can see that it's as much about fashion as it is about cost. So there is that. The issue I think you're going to have most proximately is that on the notion of privatising our water businesses, the last estimate I saw from the Social Market Foundation, admittedly it was the last Parliament, so it will have gone up, was somewhere between 90 and 100 billion pounds. Well, this government...
For what? Are you suggesting that we pay these private companies money to...
Yeah, unless you want the economy to collapse, you have to give fair value to the owners of an asset.
Can you not sue them to the value of their value, seeing as they've destroyed and have not invested as they said they would? Can you not sue them and they can sell you back that industry for £1?
You want to seek to constructively bankrupt?
Absolutely, because they should be bankrupt. They should be bankrupt because they said they would invest and they didn't, and what they're doing is poisoning our waterways, and I think it's absolutely abhorrent. They don't get anything. They don't get anything.
But the real fault lies with the regulators, and I think that's happened over a period of decades, actually, that Ofwat, who set the prices, the Environment Agency, all of these are various organisations that are supposed to check water quality and supposed to do stuff about pollutants, and they haven't. So if they're going to get rid of Ofwat, then that's a jolly good thing, and let's hope that the government brings in something that links together DEFRA, Department for Environment, Farming and Rural Affairs, and Health, and works together. You cannot have these things sitting in isolation. If you are building houses and you are saying you can't build here because of the pollutants that will go into this river, but, oh, actually, no, you can build these houses. You can buy your way out of it. That is fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, as long as you put solar panels in and do all the net zero stuff you can build, forget the waterways. Look, do you think, though, that water should be renationalised? I think it should be.
Well, in an ideal world, it will cost a fortune.
It's just not...
No, but why would it cost a fortune?
I know that you say we should You
I would.
said,
That's
Sue,
what
that,
I
look,
would.
if you believe someone's done the wrong thing, then you should prosecute them. But the prosecution isn't going to produce bankruptcy for any of these companies. Perhaps the
I'd
fines
fine
you can
them,
charge are
fine
too low.
them.
But look, even on the numbers of breaches that we've seen, which are in dozens, not hundreds, you're not just going to get to the level where it's going to meaningfully affect the bank balance on what people are allowed to do. There's always going to be a certain amount of runoff when people have got the infrastructure we have in this country. But you think we should just try and destroy these companies?
Absolutely.
Right?
100%.
Perhaps that's because you think it's all sort of top-hatted capitalists with big cigars.
No, that's not what I think. See, no, don't tell me what I think. No, I think that the reason they should be bankrupted is because they have destroyed the waterways. They have not done what they were meant to do. They did not invest. OK, let me give you a question then.
But
how much do you think the boss of Thames Water earns?
I have no idea.
About £850,000. And once he's got his bonuses, it's about over £1 million. OK, so they have been giving themselves bonuses whilst not cleaning the water or doing the things they're meant to be doing.
We know that. And
I know you know that, but the point of the matter is they also haven't invested in the infrastructure that they said they would. No. So if we take that money off them and invest in the infrastructure, they won't have anything left.
But it would just cost so much money.
And in the course of so doing, the point I was seeking to make, Nana, was that most people's pensions are bound up in large listed businesses in this country. If you've got a pension in this country, it's very likely it's something in water companies.
All right, well, you know, you take your risk, and that's the risk. If you invest it badly in people who don't invest in the industry they're meant to be investing in, then you lose your money. Right, coming up, a poll has revealed that most Britons would support fines for foul language based on Thanet Council proposals for £100 fines. Do you think that swearing fines are justified? We'll be talking about that after the break.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, this is Dewbs and Co with me, Nana Aquia, and Dewbs' Tavern is now open, yeah, so keeping me company. Yes. I love this. Until 7 o'clock, we've got political consultant Alex Dean, and also journalist and former press secretary to Paddy Ashdown, Joe Phillips. Right, now still just a little bit more of the things that you've been saying about sewage. Anne says the government should take over the industry with urgency, not only to save the fundamental nature in this country and stop the pollution. Those in charge should be made to pay back their excess bonuses, as they've failed to do their jobs for decades, telling us about water shortages and overpopulation growth breaches our fundamental human rights. We need water to survive, or is this another way to get rid of us? Yeah, do you know, sometimes I do feel like that, the way they go on about it. Obviously, water is an essential, and I don't see how it should be privatised, because there's no real competition, because you can't choose where you have your water from. But let's move on. A poll shows that most Britons would back fines for foul language in public. It comes after Thanet Council proposed £100 penalties for those who refuse to stop swearing when asked by police and council officers. 54% of people support the idea, whilst 36% oppose it. Supporters say it's about restoring respect in public spaces. Critics argue it's a step too far. What do you think? Let's get the thoughts of my panel. Joe Phillips, what do you think? Swearing in public, should they be fined?
I think swearing in public can be deeply offensive, particularly on trains and public transport. I think the idea of fining people, we know who's going to enforce those fines? Where are these people to enforce the laws that already exist on drinking in public, dog mess, unruly behaviour, those sort of things? We haven't got them. We can't afford them. Local authorities can't afford them. And you can bet your life, you go up to somebody who refuses to stop swearing, what are you going to do? Then take them to court for £100? What a waste of time and resources. What we need to do is to be able to say, that's out of order, mate. Just, control your language. But as I said earlier, in relation to the Reform Council thing, the language that is generally used, in politics particularly, and in the media, is pretty offensive in lots of ways. The casual dismissal of other people's views and attitudes. And if you ask somebody, for instance, to move a bag so that you can sit down or something like that, you're quite likely... I had an altercation with some very young children the other day, and their language was shocking.
What happened? Can you say?
Well, what happened in the end was that they were setting fire underneath a boat. They were probably 12 or 13, and it was an altercation. It was daylight, it was early evening, but their language that they used and the threats that they made were absolutely shocking. So you can understand why people won't intervene, but having somebody, to go and find somebody is just for the trees.
I'm sorry that happened. I can understand why this council is pursuing this policy. Because it's the little things, and when people don't sort of get along with the norms and are happy to transgress, you feel less secure in your own environment, and you feel like society is off. I live in London now, and I see people pushing through gates at train stations every single day, and the fact that they get away with it, I think, is terrible. So I understand that, but it's very seldom that a police officer feels the need to deal with someone on the street just because they're swearing.
Yeah.
They may be swearing in the course of doing something else, providing a level of threat or intimidation or even actual violence. But the number of times someone's just minding their own business, having a good swear to themselves, and the police feel the need to intervene is vanishingly small. So I wonder, it's a bit of a symptom rather than cause when you try to identify swearing. Of course, we used to have the offence of public nuisance, but we got rid of it in the last Parliament.
All right, well, listen, Paul said, Nana, if someone is causing a scene or being abusive, then they should be fined. Casual use of swearing, however, should never be outlawed. Otherwise, Brits are just kowtowing to our former Norman masters. It's just use of our ancient language, Anglo-Saxon. The worst swear word you can imagine. Just means scabbard. Thank you very much for that. Well, listen, thank you so much for your company this afternoon. Don't forget, you can stay with us all day, not just on TV, but on radio and on your smart speaker. To listen to us on your smart speaker, just say play GB News on TuneIn. Thank you very much to my panel, Alex, Dean, and also Joe Phillips. And a huge thank you to you at home for your company. I'll be back on Sunday, actually, because it's my birthday tomorrow. I'll leave you now, because up next, Lee Anderson.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A lively night out there in places with a thunderstorm warning in force for parts of southeast England because of the sheer amount of rain that could fall in just under 3 hours. We've got low pressure to the northwest. That's causing rising air. That, combined with the heat and humidity that has been building over the last few days, means that an area of thundery rain may well be imported from northern France through the Channel and arrive into London and the southeast during the early hours. And the intense